Hello, and welcome back to the Argyle CFO Summit. My name is Brittany Sullivan with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speakers. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would love to introduce our speakers. Mike Swope, Chief Financial Officer at Arby's, and Chris Elmore, Chief Evangelist at AvidXchange. We're excited to have Mike and Chris with us for a thought leadership presentation titled AP Automation at Arby's, the CFO's Secret Ingredient for Growth. Welcome, and over to you.
My name is Chris, and I was started at AvidXchange in 2000. That's 22 years ago.
I've been with DRM, we're a franchisee at Arby's since 2015, and shortly after that, I started using AvidXchange. So that kind of gets us started where we're at.
We're going to talk a little bit about who AvidXchange is and what our technical value is. So we'll start with a little bit of information, and then we're going to finish with experience. We have about 8,000 customers and over 800,000 suppliers. And the best way to kind of explain who we are is we build technology to help that 8,000 and 800,000 communicate through financial transactions. And there's two basic financial transactions. There's the accounts payable invoice, and then there's the physical payment that settles that invoice. So that's a little bit about who AvidXchange is. It's like I said, we're trying as hard as we can to build a bridge between customers and their suppliers around those two financial transactions. Now, the number that I want to point out, and the thing that I want to kind of give maybe legitimacy to the company, is this bottom number on the middle panel, which is $180 billion. So we process we help customers process about 2 million invoices and 1 million payments every month. And that's a large number, folks, if you think about it. We're very serious about security, speed, all of those things that needs the attention of a financial transaction. And so most people, especially those who are just kind of getting to know the industry and maybe dipping their toe into going out and looking for an AP automator or a partner like AvidXchange, a lot of people think that because it's a new idea to them, it must be somehow a new company or a new industry. And all of these numbers are completely presented to let you know that our trial and error phase was a long time ago. And we have to be very serious about these financial transactions because there's a decent amount of them. I don't know, Mike, you got a reaction to that? I told you we weren't going to talk until we did the fireside chat, but I mean, you've been around numbers in tech for a long time. Is there any reaction to?
Yeah, well, I think you touched on it, Chris, the $180 million worth of transactions that happen. And I think truth that you're telling that you handle $180 billion, you got to do it right. And you guys do.
Yeah. So. It's no messing around. And we're public, too. That's not on the slide. Business intelligent work. Is it coded correct? Is it actually approved right? Is it at the right number? All of the things that a machine can't do, we want you to do that. We're not hiding the tech. But we've elected not to look at the technology because we want to talk about the reasons why you should do this, not how it works. That's the whole point. So when it gets down to it, you're definitely going to need to see how it works. And we want to show you that. So at the end of this broadcast, if you're one of those that want to take that next step and physically look at the product and talk about its nuts and bolts and how it works, we would like to set you up with an individual that can do that. Everyone operates just a little bit differently. So we want to have a conversation that's unique, and you don't have problems, you have paper problems. What's on it, what's going on. We want to make those things visible. And because of that visibility and because of that control, we also would believe, and it happens, that things become more efficient. Things speed up. The bottom line is they do cost less. we're going to get into that component, but our material outcome is time savings. That's the piece. By the way, this is not unique to AvidXchange. It's any automator. And I'll say this because Mike is a really good example, is that you didn't just say, oh, AvidXchange is who I want to go with. You did some pretty copious research. And at the end of the day, you've got to align yourself with the organization, the automator, that frees up the most time and, doesn't wreck everything that you're doing. So those are kind of our 4 pillars: visibility, control, efficiency, time, labor, and cost. Mike, I have really disliked talking about this with you sitting there, because I talk about it and you've lived it, but you had like a laundry list. And how did AP make it to the top?
I had to sit. I mean, one of the first things was that I had to approve. Part of it was I needed to look at all the invoices as they were approved and cut for payment. And the way it happened was there was this metal basket that had all the invoices in, and it went from one desk. It went from the AP processor to the controller to me. And you flip through those, just reviewing to see if anything jumped out, make sure it wasn't going to some personal person you didn't know about. And you flip through those, and it's just like, and then the next thing was they got filed away in a file cabinet somewhere. Mm-hmm. And it's just like the time was just killing me in terms of just didn't need to be this way. And not that I had used an AP automated system before, but how that was integrated in the fact that did tremendous amount on offsetting the cost. So,
well, we're gonna get into that specifically, kind of happy accidents. I want to say it for the record. You can react to it however you want, but I tell people this all the time. There's only so many ways that you can digitize an invoice, put it on a computer screen, represent it to get it coded and approved, and then present it to an accounting system. I mean, if you look at us and our competitors, we're all basically going to look the same. So, yes. Yeah, and I'm the first to tell you that. But in reality, when it kind of comes out into the wash, because there's some nuances, sometimes those nuances can make a really big difference, and you don't really know that until you've selected a dance partner and realized that they can't dance. I think my quote was, you want to find the automator that frees up the most time that doesn't wreck your process.
Yep.
So,
yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So did you have like a mental checklist on what you were looking for, or did you have a process that you wanted to follow to ensure that you weren't going to get a dance partner that couldn't dance?
And again, I think it's more of when I looked at, and again, it wasn't just me. Obviously, there was a number of other people in the department that this would affect, and they were part of those initial demos too. So it took their feedback too to say what did they like best, what seemed to be more appealing to them when it came to the user interface, and getting some confidence they believe they could work with that vendor. And then again, as I said, it's like, okay, now we narrow it down to these people that we feel comfortable with. Let's make sure there isn't any of those nuances. But again, that was when we really got serious about working with that vendor, talking about what they did, trying to understand exactly how it worked to make sure the best we could, short of doing a full-blown pilot with them, would there be any issues with that?
Well, as we kind of transition into the middle part, which I said, let's go ahead and talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. You can be very transparent about this. And why don't you give the audience at home some glimpse into what the team was like? I mean, you don't have to name names. But tell us a little bit about the tenure, their desire to change, basic stuff like that.
And I think I touched on it, as the owner said, that, we've been doing the same thing, using the same accounting software, doing the same processes for, I think it was a good 12 years. And to a point, they adapted to it, which is nothing wrong with that. They adapted to how that software worked and how they needed to do their AP. So kind of like I said, this is the way we've done it for 12 years. And what are you going to do? And, good thing to them too. They were very, I don't want to say resistant, but anytime there's change management, there is going to be some pushback. But it's more of a pushback that, maybe they're not as into the technology as I was, but couldn't believe that it could get any better. And so it took some time to prove to them, to listen to them, to understand them. So, these people, I think they had worked and one's still here, but the other one had retired. So they had been here 22 years, I think, one of them, and the other's still here. So I think hers is 18 years now, and the one before that was probably 12. So they'd been here a long time, and probably, like I said, when they started the new accounting system. So a lot of, I can't believe we're going to change this. I can't believe it can be better. I don't want to say not up against, but that's what you had to work with, and you had to make sure you understood. You had to listen, coach, and repeat it all over again every week for a period of time. So
I just stepped over like the most important thing. You have to listen, coach, and repeat. Repeat. What's the repeat thing? Why is that so? Now remember what we're doing here, folks. And
I think I should have, when I say repeat, I think it's the process that, I don't want to say I had to keep teaching them over again. No, that's not the case.
Sure.
Repeat means just remember, you have to listen every week, every problem. It's not once it's done, it's put away. There's always going to be something. So just make sure you're always listening and trying to help them solve or understand how to solve that problem with whatever your tool you're using. And then when I say repeat, I mean start that process over again. It's not finished. It will go on and on as still today, except they're probably more now. If you talk to, I'll use one of their names, Susie, you talk to her now, she probably does more working with you guys, working with Avid. She probably does more to help me move it along. I mean, one of the best things now is what she has done with the help of the store managers and our district managers is figured out that, these stores would love to take the time to understand what they're being charged for and have that opportunity to review that invoice. Before, it always came here and we handled the paper and you couldn't really send them out to them. Now with Avid, we can change that routing so that when that invoice comes in, if it's associated with a store, it gets routed to that person's email address, and that person can check those and say, yeah, I agree with it, move on. So they can improve it now, which is the greatest thing. And to a point, Susie has done that without my push. So
we're going to, that's even better. We're going to talk about Susie, because it wasn't she naturally the one that said, I don't know if I necessarily want to do this, but let me back off here. Let me say, go ahead.
Good. Well, it wasn't that she didn't want to do it. It's the one, she had a lot of good questions and a lot of questions. At times it felt to me like it was pushback, but I think what it was is she was really trying to understand. She wanted to make sure there was none of those nuances that you talked about that would break.
Yes.
And she's a great employee that we're very happy and privileged to have her. So, yeah.
So I got to be careful, because I can really, we can blink and then 25 minutes has gone by. So I got to be real to the point. I'm going to be just sit back and relax, Mike. But I want to, the relationship that we've had together over the last how many years, you've really helped me understand one thing that's been kind of plagued me earlier, which is, these people hate change. They're inflexible. They're uncreative. All of that is completely false. And I've gotten a better sense and understanding that when somebody, especially if someone has tenure in a position and task, and they've done those tasks for a long time and they're actually good at it and they have pride in their job, they're gonna push back, and they need to push back. And I tell people here at AvidXchange all the time, we have 1,800 employees. And any chance I hear or see someone say they just hate change, I'm like, their entire job is dedicated to make sure that money doesn't siphon out of the company and no one steals that money. Do you really want someone who loves change and is super creative around the process like that? No, you want someone who's going to say, wait a minute, is this really a good idea? What's your reaction? I told you it could be a speech.
I'm sorry. What's that?
I could really talk a lot about this, because like you said, it could seem like obstinance.
No. Yeah. And it can seem that way, but I think you got to put yourself in their shoes. Even the day I come in, it's like, what's this person going to do? And you have to help them understand that, I'm working together with you, hopefully, to make it a better place, job for you and a better place for this company so that we can continue to grow, and that your importance to this company will continue to grow because you have been very important, and there's no reason why that would change. So let's work together to make this solution work, because here's the reasons why I think it will work. What do you not see? Let's talk about that some more. Let's just have that open door and talk about it. And it's hard at times. I mean, when I want to move fast and they're like, hanging on to the ropes and saying, wait a minute, slow down. And it's time. You can't let that get to you that you're not moving as fast as you want to. You have to move at a speed that won't, again, cause any disruption to the company. So
did you learn that skill over time, or have you always kind of naturally been someone who no? Tell me about
no, it's something that after you've changed, had so many changes in systems and past, you run into this. Maybe early on I was horrible at it. I remember. I don't want to go into the story, but it's developed over time, I think. Yeah.
You could go into the story.
Well, it is way back when you first started. I in technology, and I was implementing this accounting system, and the controller was doing everything on the ledger, right now on the ledger, and I couldn't convince him that it was quicker to do it in the system. And I remember being so frustrated, and I think him and I butted heads several times, and we didn't need to, and it was probably my fault because I wanted to move 100 miles an hour, and he was going like, wait a minute, I got to make sure this stuff is right. And we can't just rush into this. And I said, oh, it's here, it can be done. But anyway, so I think it's developed over time.
By the way, I think it's a great story.
I've been fortunate to be in positions where I needed to make change, and I've learned from those. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping folks just don't hear a bunch of banter and some stories back and forth. I hope that you hear you got to have some patience, you got to have some vision, and then you got to have a lot of constant reinforcement of why we're doing this. And this is just basic change. This is not. But for some reason, accounts payable automation gets this moniker of, hey, we're going to automate. And then people think, oh, shoot, I guess I'm out of a job. Did you bump up against that?
Yes, it did. And I think that is, that's a good point, because what was my numbers? We decreased back then, not that we had a huge staff, but our staff shrunk over time due to people, that one person leaving naturally because of retirement. But what we've done, when I say our staff has shrunk, that has to do with AP. But there is so many other things that we needed to improve, from payroll, recruiting, and stuff like that our staff has grown, but in that particular area, it had shrunk. So it was trying to convince people that there's plenty of things to do, but the problem is you have to walk that fine line of, do they want to do that other stuff? Do they want to help? And so that, unfortunately for us, those people wanted to do other things as it came about. So anyway, run into that, but you have to convince them that there is more to it than just AP.
Do you try to do that, or do you just kind of let it naturally happen over time, and those people kind of self-select in or out, or do you get right in front of them and say, hey, look, this is the way it's going to be? If I'm gonna say this, but I know this is not your style. Either you get on board or you get left behind. I know you would never.
I think that would be the worst thing to do, Chris. That'd be the worst thing to do. I mean, you got to be open. You got to be transparent what's going on. But you got to make sure they understand that there is, hopefully all companies have different areas that need improvements and more help. And nobody, I think it'd be crazy if a company we're completely staffed, and if we do anything, they have to leave. That's if you're in a downturn. Obviously, the reason I came in, because we were on a growth pattern, so there's plenty of opportunity for those people to pick up other tasks and responsibilities. So you just had to make sure that they saw that. And you shared that with them, and you were transparent that that's what it was all about.
Well, so if you
had to cut staff because of an economic downturn, I would have to do what you said. Be transparent with them and tell them this is the way it is. But anyway, go ahead.
So for those of you that think that we're just chit-chatting, here, if you think about it, just to recap, Mike's got a new opportunity. The owners are on board, says we got to make things more efficient. He does his list. AP's at the top. You go through your due diligence. Fortunately, you selected us. It doesn't always happen, but we matched up, and then the work started. So now everything that was theoretical and possible and positioning or maybe let's call it technical, what's a good word for it? I'm reaching for my words here, but promises. There's all these technical promises out there. And then what happened?
Yeah, and you say technical promises. I would like to think, Chris, that we, when it comes to the technology part of it, I think we did a great job of fleshing that out. I don't want to say there was a lot of surprises. The integration with our existing system at that time was a real old version of Solomon. Some nervousness about that, but, I felt pretty comfortable that could be done, just matter how much time. But the one thing I was completely nervous about, nothing to do with technology, it was the justification based on cost. That was the biggest, scariest thing. And to sit back now.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, we were at a point that the owners did not like, what do you call it, subscription costs. They hated subscription costs. Everything's going that way. Everything is that way now. But they hated that. And then to a point, there is a subscription cost per invoice cost with Avid, and then per payment. But in return in that, there's that thing. If you use the credit card, you might get some, I don't know what the right word for it is. I'll just use it, kickback, if you will.
Yeah. Rebate.
Rebate. That should cover, a part of your invoicing costs. And my justification, not knowing, no way to test that, just took Avid's word for it, and it came true.
So let's be real clear with the people at home here, the audience, is that, and AvidXchange, you process your invoice and you make your payments. And on the back end, what we do is through a fairly simple and elaborate process, we figure out which payments can be put on card and which payments need to be made by check and other payments that can take on other electronic methods. So basically, we monetize as many payments as we possibly can. And then you share in that monetization, if that's an actual word. So your thought was, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm trying to ask you a question. That was a promise made to you that the outcome of that payment process was going to reduce your cost. And you didn't bank your whole decision on that, but that was up there. Tell folks about what was in your mind at that time.
Well, you said I didn't make my whole decision on that. Well,
I don't know.
It was one of the reasons why we chose Avid is because of that. And I'm not shortchanging all the other stuff, but it was one of the big reasons. And that's what I essentially, Avid promised me, and I, to a point, that initial decision coming in here in 2016 was, I can implement this and it will cost this. And that cost was obviously a minimized amount because of what we thought we would get in rebate. And it was better than what I put on paper. And that was a great outcome. And it's done wonders for me here. It helped with the whole team in terms of seeing that I kind of went out on that limb, if you would call it a limb. I went out on that, and I believed it based on the technology, and you guys delivered. And so that was a big deal.
Hang on a second. Whew.
Yeah, that was a big deal. And
so here's the thing. You did say go out on a limb, and then you say, well, not go on a limb. But when you make a change that involves technology, and then your justification was to make sure that expense was super low because the owners don't like subscriptions. This is a great story, by the way. So you had everything lined up. You had all of the things that you wanted to do lined up, which, by the way, is really good. I don't know, Mike, I don't know how many times I've run into someone when they didn't have any of that lined up. And for some reason, they were magically hoping that it was all going to work out. I mean, you got to have the reason why you're doing it, and you got to have the reason why it's going to be successful. And that's nothing that I can tell you. I mean, I can tell you what other people have, but you had all of that together.
Yep.
But then you still had to take some kind of a leap, and you still had to put your reputation on the line. And by the way, were you concerned about that in any way, or did you have like a plan B or C or D or anything like that?
Was I concerned? Yes, I was concerned. But I think in terms of, I would like to think that in terms of if it didn't work out, if it did end up costing us, that we could, we would just have to, and hopefully it wouldn't be that far off. But I don't know. I guess, Chris, I didn't really have a plan B.
Okay, that's good. But then your reputation was on the line.
Yeah, I really believed it would. I mean, believe is one word, but, I thought I was sound in the decision making and based on the references, based on the conversations, that I was pretty confident it would happen. But there's a part of you, I've seen failures in the past, and you just didn't want this to be one. I didn't think it would be, and it wasn't. So that's all I can say. I wish I had a plan B.
I mean, you probably had a plan B, which was to try to find me physically, and then, but for the folks at home, in the audience, I want them to know that you did your homework, you had your objectives, and then you had your success criteria. And if you don't have those three things, you leave it to chance. And chance is way more difficult than any of this. So what was the outcome? How did this all kind of finish up for you?
You mean,
we're in happy accidents. We've already talked about the price justification, the card buying down the cost. But did it allow you to maintain or grow or kind of what's the outcome? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even today, we are, no, I can't get into that. But even today, we're very efficient in terms of if we had to bring on more stores, we feel very comfortable. We still have, it wouldn't be a fire drill. We can bring on more stores and more partners and not have to worry about it. We're very efficient, got a great team that is, deep in understanding of Avid now. There's no resistance. It's just made our team better. And I think going through something like this makes it better. We implemented another accounting package after that. And again, all of that stuff, going through and understanding your team and listening to them and them listening to you, it's just made us better. And I think that is the greatest outcome. Financially, a great decision. And from the team perspective, it's made our team even stronger. So,
yeah, when you mentioned you changed from Solomon to NetSuite, or you didn't mention that, but
I didn't.
You did mention Solomon. And we interact with, I think, 180 different accounting systems. I get them confused all the time. I remember when we used to interact with one. But what was if you could kind of compare the automation process with changing your ERP, because people think that they have similarities. Did they, or was one more difficult than the other? And
well, I think that's a very good question. It is a matter of, I think, if I'm not mistaken, our Solomon interface was purely a push a file up and have it loaded, and where with Solomon, where with NetSuite, like I'm sure there's other packages out there that you guys do this with, it's all kind of built in. So it's kind of a smooth integration. You really don't see that it's time to upload a batch of invoices or whatever. It's all just part of NetSuite. And that whole integration, maybe was a little bit tougher. I can't truly compare, but I know the result has been, we're glad we're in a fully integrated system as opposed to a batch type process.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Mike, thanks, man. Just to kind of recap, I love that you had the vision and you had some naysayers. Mm-hmm. And I got to say, if anyone's pulling away from this webinar saying, fight the naysayers, you have to embrace them, because I love where their heart is. That's the one thing I've learned over 22 years. But you had your objective, and then your justification was to make sure that expense was way down, and you used our rebate system to ensure that happened. So any final thoughts on any of this that we didn't kind of talk about?
No, I think we covered as far as my notes here. Yeah, I think we
didn't mention that Arby's has a new hamburger. Is that correct?
The hamburger. It's not a hamburger. It is better than a hamburger. It's a burger made out of Wagyu beef. So it is good. I think by the time people get out there and try to taste it, we'll be out, because it's been a huge success. So if anybody gets a chance, go to Arby's, try the Wagyu burger. It is delicious.
This webinar was sponsored by the Wagyu Burger. That's awesome, Mike. Hey, man, listen, appreciate it. Hang around just for 1 second. I want to talk to the audience. By the way, unfortunately, we don't have any time for questions. If you lobbed a question, we're going to just kind of answer that directly. But we need to launch a poll. We want to, I don't know, Kim or Kimberly. Those are our producers. We name them Kim and Kimberly. There we go. So if anyone wants to look at the product, by the way, we're not trying to bribe you. We're gonna say thank you by giving you $50 MasterCard gift card. But if you want some information, just select that button. If you're just here to learn, that's fine too. Hopefully you learned something. But if anyone wants to take the next step, I highly recommend that you schedule that demonstration so we can talk about all of the principles: time saving, efficiency, visibility, and that rebate through card. We want to talk about those specifically within your organization because everyone's just a little bit different.
Thank you both so much again for such an incredible thought leadership. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be made available on demand following the event. As a reminder, please be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules section to see how you can earn points for a chance to win one of several prizes. Our next session will begin at 2:05 Eastern, which will be a keynote titled Navigating the 2025 Tax Landscape, US and Globally. Please click the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected, and we look forward to seeing you there.